Thank you for joining us today. My name is Susan Ashmore, and I'm the Director of Development for First in Texas. Today's session is a vitally important topic to the future of our first students. There are so many options available to students. After high school graduation, students are making very difficult decisions, and many of those decisions include quite a bit of cost and possibly student loans. The Texas Workforce Commission has been powering First in Texas teams since 2010. When you're at one of our events, you see TW stickers on dozens of robots. During the last 10 years, the number of students participating in our STEM programs started at 5,450, and at the end of last season was almost 36,000. So let's get down to the show. Our first panelist is Lori Knight. Lori is the Education and Outreach Manager at the Texas Workforce Commission for the past 5 years. Prior to her current role, she worked as an educator, academic advisor, and student advocate. Lori is passionate about helping students align their interests, talents, and education to their potential career interests. Our second panelist is Malisa Barnes. She is an education outreach specialist at the Commission in the Labor Market Career Information Department. Malisa works to share the free resources made available to students to help them make informed career decisions. Malisa previously worked as a career and technology teacher and counselor, helping students with their post-secondary planning. I know all of you will learn about some resources today that are really pretty cool. We're going to incorporate a slide deck today so you can see some screenshots of all of these resources. The slide deck will be made available to you after today's session. And now for our first question. So what type of online resources are available on TWC's website that can help students decide their next steps after high school graduation?
So we actually have a lot of different online tools and resources, including websites as well as printed publications that are available in a PDF format to be downloaded. The first online option that students have is called Texas Career Check, and you can see the website on the slide. And this is going to provide students an opportunity to do some career exploration as well as exploring different schools that they might be interested in. There's an option for an assessment, which is an interest assessment for them to take to kind of align some different occupations with what their interests are. And it gives them kind of a place to start and to find additional information about the careers and the schools that they might be interested in.
Another online resource that we have is Texas Reality Check, and this is probably our most popular online tool. It is an assessment of sorts, but rather than asking the students what their career interests are, it instead asks them what kind of lifestyle they want to live as an adult. So they get to choose, and then the tool will tell them at the end how much money they need to earn to sustain that particular lifestyle. And then it will provide them with a list of occupations that can actually provide that salary or something higher in their areas. We have one more tool here. Malisa, did you want to talk about that?
Sure. This is another one of our downloadable printed publications that we have. And there's a link on your screen where you can access all of our printed publications. This particular one is called Beyond High School, and it's going to offer information for parents and students to use together on exploring the different options after high school. It includes some terminology and things that may not be familiar to parents and students for financial aid, that type of thing. So this is a great resource for students and parents as well to use together as they're looking at what their options are after high school.
And we're going to be mentioning this particular resource several times in this presentation because it can answer a lot of questions to help you kind of demystify everything that could happen after high school.
Those are both great options and resources, and I'm sure for the parents too. So what do you advise a student who is interested in a couple of different career paths to do to make a decision on their future education?
Well, I would start with kind of exploring, finding out what, what it is that the student's interest is. What is it that they're passionate about? What are different options that align with what their passions are, what their interests are? Talk to people, interview people that maybe have that particular job that they have an interest in, get as much information as they can about the occupation as far as, how do I start into that particular job? What type of entry-level positions would get their foot in the door to pursue that career? Any type of internship opportunities that are available, or volunteering. I know, a lot of students are involved in clubs and organizations where they are required to have certain hours for volunteering. This is a great opportunity to find, for example, if a student's interested in becoming a vet tech or a veterinarian, go volunteer in the local vet clinic and get some actual real world experience so they can see what it's actually like on a daily basis. So exploring and interviewing people, talking to other people about the different opportunities that are out there, I think is a great way for them to start trying to decide which direction out of the few that they might be interested in.
I would add to that, not only is it important for them to actually do these things, but the timing in which they do them, I think, is particularly important as well. And I say this as somebody who was a teacher for both high school students and college students. Everything that you're going to be doing after high school, whether it's training, workforce training, community college, university level kind of stuff, these are trainings and courses that you're going to have to pay for. And so you don't want to have to find out like way far down the road that you may be headed towards a career or degree that you don't really want to utilize. So being able to actually do the exploration, taking the time to interview people in occupations you're interested in, or best case scenario, volunteer your time in the industry, in an occupation, just to be in the environment and atmosphere to make sure that it is something you can see yourself do on a day-to-day basis. I think it's highly important to do that as early as you possibly can. So whether in high school or very early in your collegiate years, so that you don't have to worry about changing majors and having to take additional coursework or extending the lifespan of your collegiate career. So definitely do these things and do them as early as possible.
Very good. So what are some of the options available to seniors graduating from high school?
Well, there are many different options. The ones that we have listed here on the slide are not in any particular order. College was first because I think that's the one that most students hear most about, right? And are more familiar with. But as you can see, there's community colleges, universities, technical colleges, there's different career schools that specialize in different types of occupations. Obviously, the military is a great option. We have registered apprenticeships that we're going to be talking more about as we go through the slide deck, and then answering the questions. And then also workforce training programs are something else that we'll touch on a little bit more throughout the presentation, and learning on the job. So there's a lot of different opportunities for students to think about, as they're finishing high school, whether they want to go straight off to college, to a community college or a four-year university. There may be others that want to join the military, or, maybe they do want to go straight into the workforce, and we do have opportunities to help them be successful regardless of, which they choose. So.
Definitely. And I would just add to that, thank you, Malisa, for covering most of that, but I would just add to that although students may hear more about one or two of these options, there are actually lots of variables even in regard to each of these options individually. And so there are way more variables and varieties that are open to students after high school. And I really think that finding the right fit for each student is imperative. So again, taking the time to research, having those conversations with mom and dad, super important.
Very good. So how can a student's parents help them make decisions?
Well, I think obviously, having conversations about what the student's interests are, what do they feel like they would like to do, and listening to what students have to say about, there's so many occupations that are in existence now that were not around when, like, for example, I was trying to make these decisions for myself. And so there may be occupations that even some parents aren't aware of that students have learned about through some of the programs in their high schools and things like that. So I would encourage parents to really listen to their children and what they have to say and their input, but also, as adults, we've experienced things through our careers ourselves and through our jobs that we can share with our, with our students or with our children to help them, make decisions about what it is that they want to do. Because there are a lot of things that students don't have a full understanding about that adults do, as we have, worked through some of these things. And obviously parents want the best for their children. And if we can help them avoid some of those, I don't want to say poor decisions, but maybe decisions that would not take them down the direct path that they intend to follow, to help them maybe shorten that curve and, miss some of those hiccups maybe that we as adults have experienced ourselves.
And another reason why I think it's so important for parents to have conversations with students, and students to also talk to peers or other mentors too, is because they're human just like the rest of us. And so we could easily probably point out all of the things that we're not great at, but we may not necessarily be able to shoot off a list of, here are the things that I do really well. But I'm sure your parents have noticed that, and I'm sure your teachers have noticed it, and I'm sure friends have noticed it. And so sometimes having those conversations with people, in addition to your parents, can be really beneficial to a student, because they know what they like, but they may not necessarily know the things that they're innately already good at or talented at. And so that also needs to be part of that conversation to help them figure out is there a talent or something that I can do that I like and that I'm good at, and can it translate into work somehow? These were both written, actually, the intended audience here was a student in tandem with a parent. So it's meant to be used in partnership for both of those audiences together. Starting the conversation, I think, is particularly great if you're a parent who maybe doesn't know exactly, like, what kinds of workforce topics should I be discussing with my student if they're in the 6th grade as opposed to when they're in the 11th grade. Starting the conversation actually helps you with conversation starters on topics that are appropriate by grade level from grade 6 through 12. So I think that those two are really great to use, at least for starting points and having really important conversations with kids.
Very good. Those look like two amazing publications that will help parents and students both alike. So let's talk internships. And I know this is several bullets here about how does a student know what types of internships are available in their area? What does a student who wants to apply for an internship need to do? Does students a resume? And then do students get paid for internships? So I'm turning it over to you two experts.
All right, thank you. So every opportunity is going to be different. There's a couple of resources that we're going to share with you on the next slide or two that we just want to make sure that students understand. Make sure that you're reading all of the posts very carefully, and make sure that the opportunities that you're going to apply for as far as internships go are in alignment to what it is that you're interested in. These are two resources that we wanted to make sure that you guys get familiar with and are able to go on and access. WorkInTexas.com has recently been revamped. It is a wonderful tool for students as well as parents, really anybody that's a job seeker or looking for internship opportunities. You can go in and create a profile for yourself and go in and search for internship opportunities. There's also a resume builder, and these are all free resources. So it'll walk you through the steps of setting up your resume on Work in Texas. Lots of different opportunities, lots of certain ways to search for internships. And then on TexasInternshipChallenge.com, that is also another opportunity. And that was actually when it was developed was to target students ages 16 to 24, I believe it was. Younger high school students, you know, leaving high school into college or workforce age group. And so some of them are paid and some of them are not. It really just depends on the company or the employer that has posted the opportunity or the internship. And you can search Texas Internship Challenge. You have the ability, as you can see on the screen, you can type in a keyword, you can put your zip code in, you can select how many miles you're willing to commute for that opportunity, and then it'll give you a list of those. So those are two different websites or tools that are available to use, and we encourage, you know, students to go ahead and get familiar with those, because not only for internships is it going to help, but also for job searching as well.
And also, work in Texas, you could be as young as 14 and build a profile within the tool. The resume builder that's in there it's very robust, and a student can just type in a list of skills, and it will actually format it into the standard format of a resume, and it looks really nice and professional. So there's that. But I also wanted to mention when it comes to whether an internship is paid or unpaid, you might see in the postings that it could be paid, it could be unpaid, it could be providing academic credit or not. It could be a combination of both, or in some cases, the student may have the option to choose whether they want to take a paid internship or just get academic credit. At this point, it's really how the partnership is built between the employer and industry and the post-secondary institution or the institution that the student is attending. And so there may be contractual agreements that require it to be one way or the other. And so there is a way that you can go through and work in Texas. And if you're looking for internships, you can filter whether or not you want only paid internships, and then only those postings will pop up. So, so those are great for any of those searches.
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing that information. So for students who've never heard about apprenticeship programs, what are they? I know apprenticeship sounds kind of like a scary word. So how do students locate apprenticeship programs in their area? Are all apprenticeship programs in skilled trades such as plumbers? I'm sure you get that question a lot.
Yes, so we actually have tools and resources that can help students in, you know, finding the right apprenticeship program for them. And basically, an apprenticeship is a full-time paid, an apprentice is going to be a paid employee who earns, you know, wages while they're learning a trade. And so, Lori, if you wanted to jump in and kind of give some...
Yeah, because we actually got some help from our TWC apprenticeship team on how to define what is an apprenticeship. And so in addition to being a paid full-time employee, usually it's minimal cost to be part of an apprentice program, usually less than $750 a year. And that would cover tools or uniforms or any kind of fees. Most apprenticeships have to be at least a year long, but some can also range from anywhere from 2 to 5 years. But the students will learn not just in the hands-on environment, but also within a classroom environment as well. And what makes a registered apprenticeship different from a standard apprenticeship is that with a registered apprenticeship program, they have to be registered with the United States Department of Labor, so the DOL. They have to also provide education and training that will lead to an occupation that is in high demand, that pays livable wages, and it has to provide an apprenticeship, a paid apprenticeship opportunity, because there are some opportunities where you don't get paid. Apprenticeship because it guarantees that you earn while you, but that also it will provide you with the credentials that you'll have at the end that will lead you to a high demand job, so that there will be some kind of employment waiting for you when you're done. There are lots of resources that are available, and actually our apprenticeship team built a 2-pager for us that we'll also have available to you after alongside this recording, so that you can read more about apprenticeships. But here, these 2 particular resources that you see, the slides. If you're looking for how do I find a program that's available close to me, you would go to apprenticeship.gov, and you could essentially type in a keyword if there's a specific kind of industry, or you can leave the key term blank and just type in a city, state, or zip code. And it will tell you within a 150-mile radius of that zip code all of the apprenticeship programs, registered apprenticeship programs that are available in the area. Career One Stop, the resource on the right-hand side, will actually tell you how to find apprenticeship offices. So if you want to speak to somebody who helps students find apprenticeships or to connect with apprenticeship opportunities, you could find where those offices are located, and it has all the contact information in them as well. On the next slide, we do get the big question about, you know, is every apprenticeship for like those manual labor kind of hard skilled jobs? And the answer to that is no. One thing that I can tell you is that apprenticeships have changed a lot. At least in the last few years. And there are lots of industries who are becoming savvy to understanding how to educate, train, and prepare folks for occupations within all kinds of industries in alternative ways. So ways outside of just the standard college experience. And so all of the industries that are listed here have apprenticeship pathways in them. So any student can go to the link that's here, and they can click on any of these industry titles, and they can find, I believe it's like the top 5 occupation titles within the industries. And so you'll see mechanics, and you'll see truck drivers, and you'll see machinists, you know, what most people believe to be the standard apprenticeship jobs. But you're also going to see computer programmers, insurance underwriters, paramedics, dental assistants. I wrote some down. Plastics fabricators. Like, there's all kinds of really great and exciting and interesting occupations that now provide opportunities for students to find a pathway through apprenticeship if that's something that they're interested in.
Very good. Okay, let's talk about the average starting wage. I know you've got some information here.
Yes. So also, and this is also included in the one pager for anybody who wants to have it, but essentially the salaries for apprentices starting and end to when they finish will differ based on the industry that they're working in. But as you can see, these here that are listed, you know, $9.25 is the lowest. And that's like, that means day one. Because when you're in a registered apprenticeship program, as soon as you're entered and registered into this program and you start day one, you're getting paid. And so you'll also see that there's a differentiation between how long the programs take, just depending on, again, the occupation that you're being prepared for. And again, it's a combination of hands-on learning and class learning as well. And then you could see, for some of them, you can see on the far right-hand side, how the wages change from starting salary annually to what it looks like when you're done. And so you can go through, you know, a 1-year program, a 2-year program, and pretty much double your salary by the time you're done. And you are a working professional, and you are licensed and degreed in many cases, because the apprenticeship programs are working in tandem with colleges. So the students are getting academic credit as well.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about other post-secondary options. I know people always want to know, what is the difference between a college and a university and a trade school? And what are the difference between all the different types of degrees? And what is a training certificate program? I think that can get kind of confusing sometimes, because those could be at community colleges too. And will a student get paid more depending upon graduation or completion from one of these options?
Well, we have, so I guess if you're thinking about what's the difference between community colleges and, you know, universities and trade schools, community college is where you're going to be able to complete that associate's degree, do some of those training programs, some of those certifications that Lori had mentioned. The universities are going to be more of that 4-year bachelor's, you can complete a bachelor's degree there, and beyond, professional degrees, master's degrees, and so forth. And all of those differences of each of those is covered in this Beyond High School publication that we've already referred to a couple of times. So you can get more details as far as those different differences in the Beyond High School manual or book. And then, certificate. Lori, did you want to talk about the certification?
Sure.
Okay.
So I wanted to make sure that I included this in here because sometimes when you're having the conversation and, people say, well, what is a certification? And then what is a certificate? And I want to say there is a distinctive difference between the two, although most folks think they're synonymous and they're not. So a certification is essentially, it's awarded by impartial third, it's an individual third party. It's not an academic institution. It's usually a certification is awarded by a trade industry or, trade association or industry association. And it usually involves some form of exam process. So how the person prepares for the exam also varies. So it could be, I'm going to take this 6-week class, and then I'm going to go pay my $100, and I'm going to take my state certification exam. And if I pass, then bing, bam, boom, all of a sudden, look at that. I'm a certified automotive service excellence person. So it could be a very, very simple process. A certificate program, on the other hand, is usually a certification in conjunction with an education, a formal education at an institution of higher learning. And so they could be short-term. It could be a 6-month program that they're doing. It could be something that takes as long as 2 years and it's connected to an associate degree. But in order to complete a certificate program, you have to complete a very specific and succinct pathway of courses, start to finish. So you have to complete very specific coursework. And then in addition, then you take an exam and then you have your certification with your certificate program. So it's a combination of the two. So I did want to make sure that we define that so that folks know that they are different. I know the other question was, what are the differences between some of the degrees and the different levels of degrees? Beyond High School does explain that, but essentially you can move from an associate degree to a bachelor's degree to a master's degree, a PhD or a doctorate. PhD, doctorate is the same. And then there are professional degrees. And professional degrees are the kinds of degrees that will set up the awardee or the recipient to do a very specific professional occupation that requires them to go to a very specific professional school. For example, if you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist, a vet, you have to go to law school, medical school, vet school, dental school, and then you have to get that very specific professional degree. Sometimes degrees have to be earned in sequence, so associate first, bachelor's next, then master's, or you can go straight to bachelor's to master's. Again, it's all, the variables are based on the institution that you attend and the programs that they offer. And in some cases, some universities will allow you to take coursework that will allow the student to earn both a bachelor's and a master's at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it really, if you want to know more about, not just what the different degrees are, but how do I earn them, take a hard look and talk to somebody in the admissions office of the institutions that you're interested in attending, because they'll let you know if there are special cases where you can take coursework and then in tandem work on multiple degrees at the same time. Finally, this last question here, will students get paid more depending upon graduation by completing any one of these post-secondary, as we like to call them, options? Absolutely. So I think the data that we see here, it's irrefutable. And we've been saying this for years, right? The more education you have, the higher your earning potential. This particular chart comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this is the 2019, so this is their most current. And essentially what you're looking at is, on the left-hand side is information about unemployment rate. On the right-hand side is weekly earnings for folks who have earned different education levels. the very bottom here is less than a high school diploma, and the top one is a doctoral degree. So it's the PhD essentially. And so it's no coincidence that the higher your education, the more employable you are. So you're not looking at the same potential of being unemployed. And then at the same time, you also have a higher amount of earnings the higher your education level goes. And part of that is because then you're able to do very specific, high level, highly technical occupations that pay well. So again, it's, this is just the data, the proof in the pudding, that kind of goes along with what educators have been saying for years, is that, the higher your education attainment, the more you will be employable and the higher earnings that you will get.
Very good. That's some really great data, and you can see how both of the bar charts are inverse, and it makes absolute sense. So
yeah.
What financial assistance is available for all of these types of education and training programs that we've talked about?
So there are a couple of different things that I would recommend for students. Those students that are still in high school, if you are interested in attending a community college or a post-secondary institution, check with your high school counselor on your high school campus, because they will have information regarding scholarships and things like that are available. So that would be one thing to do. And then also check with the institution that the student plans to attend, because they will be able to offer some specific scholarships for their particular institutions or campuses that are only available, to students that will be attending their schools. Also, the local workforce solution offices, as you can see on your screen right here, there's funding available for certain programs depending on what the students are going to be pursuing. And so there's a link here that will take you to the directory, but you can also go to the Texas Workforce Commission website, and you can see at the top, across the top, where it says About Us, Contact Us, you can click on Find Locations, and this is the screen that pops up for you. And all you need to do is put your zip code in, and then the radio button for Job Seeker Services automatically populates itself, and then you're just going to click search, where you can see the little cursor is right over the search button, and you click search, and that's going to give you the workforce solution offices that are closest to the zip code that you entered. And from there, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of programs available that have funding, that offer funding for these different programs, that you might be able to do some training and get what you need for free and not have to pay out of pocket. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that, Lori?
No, I just wanted to say what a lot of students what a lot of job seekers don't really know about our workforce solution offices is all of our services are free for job seekers, any of our citizens in the state of Texas, any Texans. But also, if you happen to be interested in an occupation that is considered high demand in your area, and if you don't know what they are, ask the folks in your local workforce solution offices, and they will tell you which of the occupations are in high demand for each individual area. If you're interested in one of those occupations, in many cases, you can get free training to get the skills that you need to actually do the job. So that could be really helpful for anyone who's like, well, I'm not really sure what I want to do. And you just want to know the variety of what's out there, especially in the areas in which you already live. And that could be one way of financing your education and training.
Very good. That's some great information. So we all know that degrees and training are very expensive. So how would a student know if training and education that they want to pursue is worth the cost?
Well, and obviously, as it says, value is subjective, right? But we can also help you kind of evaluate and think about, the financial profitability of what your options are that you're considering to pursue for your post-secondary choices. And Texas Cruise, as you see here, txcruise.org, you can explore any public institution of higher learning in Texas and all of their majors and their programs. And I know Lori has some specific things that she wanted to talk about the Texas Cruise website, how you can search and the information that you can find specifically on here.
There's several different ways you can do it. And actually, I think the two probably easiest are if you know the institution that you want to attend, you can plug in that information and you can look at outcome results for that specific institution of higher learning, whether it's a community college or it's a university. And it will tell you, so for example, I want to go to Texas A&M University in College Station. And and I want to major in biochemistry. I don't know. You can go and look at Texas A&M University, and you can see biochemistry majors. You can see all of the majors and find out exactly how many students graduated in that program, what percentage of them had student loans, what was the average amount of student loans, and then you could look at their annual earnings years 1, 3, 5, 7, and 10 after graduation. Now, the caveat there is that there's not a guarantee that a biochemistry major who got their degree is actually working in biochemistry. We just know that they're working. We don't actually know the industry, but we could tell you on average what those graduates are earning. And so that's really helpful. So if I know I want to go to A&M, but I don't know what I'm going to major in, I can look at A&M University and just see, like, oh, you know, which degree had the least amount of student loan debt, if that's something I'm interested in, or which degree had the most number of graduates, if that's, you know, what I'm interested in. So that's one good way to do it. Another way to do it is to say, well, I know I'm going to major in history, but I don't know where I'm going to attend school. You can look it up by program of study. So if you just look at program of study and here's the degree that I want to get, all different levels of education attainment, this is the degree that I want. It will show you every institution, public institution in the state of Texas that provides that particular award. And then you can do those comparisons as well. So how many folks graduated from each of those individual institutions? What was their student loan amount? A percentage of students who had student loans, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a good way to kind of, and you can choose going anywhere. It'll help you kind of narrow it down so you're making the decision that's going to be the best profit, right? So how much am I willing to invest in, and what do I want to get back from it?
That's really a fantastic tool that we don't hear as much about, and
Right.
a great way to calculate your return on investment too.
Yes.
For sure.
So students hear a lot about 21st century skills. So can you tell us what they are and what does a student need to know to be successful in the workforce?
Well, in all honesty, Lori and I were kind of, laughing a little bit because we could honestly do a whole webinar just on 21st century skills, or what some people refer to them as soft skills. There's lots of different names for them. If you Google soft skills or 21st century skills, you'll see, lots of different lists and different articles and different, teams that have put together studies on what employers want to see and that type of thing. So lots of information out there if you just Google it. We're just going to kind of give you the quick and dirty, I guess you could say, on soft skills. We have a couple of resources and tools that we wanted to share with you guys. One of them is a printed publication that we have, and you can see it here on the screen. And there's, again, the link for accessing these PDF copies of these publications that will, talk about how to succeed at work, which covers the top 10 soft skills or 21st century skills that students can recognize and see, what is it that employers are looking for? How is it going to help them be successful in the workplace? And also think about what are some things that they are currently doing to work on some of these skills, because a lot of times students don't realize that they're actually working on soft skills just by what they're doing on a daily basis in the classroom, meeting deadlines and paying attention to detail and some of the things that you can see listed on this brochure cover. But some other publications that we also have, one is called Succeed at Work. There's also one called Workplace Essentials. And there's a website, there's a link here on the screen that I would encourage students and even parents, any teachers that are watching the webinar. It's put out by the Department of Labor, and it's called Skills to Pay the Bills. And this link will take you there, and it goes through different exercises and things, identifying soft skills. There's some videos on there. They're pretty entertaining to show, different aspects of soft skills, and they give you good examples of what not to do, and then of course good examples of how should you handle certain situations with soft skills. So those are some great resources that students can access easily and start to kind of address those soft skills or 21st century skills.
I would just want to add about soft skills is that I know that students in the academic environment, there's a huge emphasis on gaining knowledge and gaining technical skill. And, we may not necessarily be having conversations with them about, oh, hey, that's building such and such soft skill or 21st century skill. And so sometimes the conversation about 21st century skills, marketable skills, soft skills, whatever you want to call them, it can be jarring for students because they're like, oh, but I've been learning that I know how to do that. But they may not necessarily be performing a particular skill at the level where it matters in the workforce, where in the world of work is a lot less forgiving than, middle school, right, for example. Right. But from what employers are telling us is that these soft skills are just as important, if not more important, than technical skills, because traditionally what data shows us is that those employees who suffer from lack of soft skill or just not finely honed or tuned soft skills is, they're probably the least likely to be promoted. They're probably the least likely to get pay raises. They're probably the first ones out the door, because soft skills really matter. I've had managers who have said, it doesn't matter if you're the smartest person in the room. If I can't get you to come to work every day, and if you don't know how to treat my customers well, I can't keep you. Yeah. And those are soft skills. And so even though we may not necessarily be talking to students and youth about soft skills on a daily basis, or at least helping them identify those, by the time they make it into the world of work, many employers assume that they know how to do these things. And so I would just want to emphasize to students that it's highly important that you think about training yourself to be better at them. And it's because it's just as important as the technical skills and the knowledge you're going to be building as well.
Very good. That's some really great information, and definitely we always hear that from employers that these other skill sets are so important. Mm-hmm. So some students might want to take a year off, or maybe they're ready to get a job right away. What services are available to them to help them find a job?
Well, I think we have talked already about Work in Texas, which that website, it would be a good go-to place for students to look for jobs. And also, again, like we mentioned earlier, connect with your local workforce solution office because they're, like Lori mentioned earlier, they have staff available to help you with job searching and, matching what your skill sets are to different types of jobs and things like that. So that, again, would be what I would recommend is the Work in Texas website, along with connecting with the local workforce solution office.
Yes, because those services are free.
Yes.
And so not only can they help you with the job search, but they can help you write the resume, fix the resume, yep, practice for interviews.
Right.
There's lots of research. They can. They even have continuous and repetitive job fairs, and so they can connect you to employers as well.
Fantastic. I know I've seen some promotions for some virtual job fairs, so that's really fantastic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's our last question, and I know it's a really difficult one to answer. So what career advice do you have for our class of 2020?
Well, for me, I would say think about what your interests are. What are you passionate about? Try to find a career path that you can incorporate what you're passionate, what your interests are. Because a job that you don't really like it makes for a long career, right? It makes for long days. But trying to match what your interests are with a career, I think is an important aspect of it. A lot of people change jobs and change careers throughout their careers. They change jobs throughout their careers. And some of that is good because it's growth. You get one particular job and you think that's the job, and then you learn a new part of that job and you're like, oh wow, so it opens up different opportunities for you. And so one job can lead you to another. But, finding something that fits your passion, I think is really important for students to do. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I could say, I guess, career advice, but I think enjoying what you do and being happy with your job makes other aspects of your life so much better.
Yes. And so I would like to add, I'm the tail end of that comment right there. That's down at the bottom. Malisa's all about follow your passions, and I follow that up with, and do so while being well informed.
Yes.
In my previous career life, I was an advisor for college students, and I had to have sometimes some really uncomfortable conversations with students who were about to graduate with degrees that they didn't really want. Or they were getting ready to find themselves entering into an industry or occupation that they weren't really interested in. And they find this out, in the 12th hour, like it's too late. It's too late at that point to figure that out. Especially when something like a very easy, once a week volunteer opportunity could help you find out in 1 or 2 sessions whether or not it's something that you would actually like to do. So my advice is always to be well informed about what you're doing, so that Malisa and I were talking about this earlier. So when you're 45 and, you're not surprised by what has happened in your life and where you find yourself. And so essentially, I think what the two of us are saying is all encapsulated in this quote from Steve Jobs. And I use this quote all the time when I'm talking to students, particularly about their career plans and researching and why they want to take the time to invest in themselves to learn about the world of work before making a decision. It's because our work as adults, that work part of our life is going to fill a large part of our life, not just a large part, the largest part of our life, right? We're going to spend more time at work than pretty much doing anything else. So the only way to really be truly satisfied in the time that we devote to our careers, we have to do work that we believe is great. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. So yes, be passionate, but be passionate going and what that looks like for career opportunities in the future, and potential salary growth too.
That is such fantastic advice from both of you. Lori and Malisa, we sincerely thank you for taking the time to inform students about these resources and share your talents with us. You will never know how many students will use this information to make future education and career decisions. We thank you and the Texas Workforce Commission for making STEM education a priority in Texas.